Hello, and welcome to the 37th in an unknown number of podcasts. In yesterday's podcast, there was a brief discussion of the Golden Rule. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. In these strange and strained times, it's perhaps worth reminding ourselves of that. I also shared a slide taken from an SMSC Assembly, and that's before you speak, let your words pass through three gates. Is it true? Is it necessary? And is it kind? In response to yesterday's podcast, somebody has been in touch and they sent me a link to some tips written by somebody called Leo Babauta. And I'd just like to share some of those tips that I found from the link. So what follows are some practical tips for living the Golden Rule by Leo Babauta. Be empathetic. Make it a habit to try to place yourself in the shoes of another person, any person, loved ones, co-workers, people you meet on the street. Really try to understand, to the extent that you can, what it is like to be them, what they are going through, and why they do what they do. Be compassionate. Once you can understand another person and feel what they're going through, learn to want to end their suffering, and when you can, take even a small action to somehow ease their suffering in some way. Be friendly. When in doubt, follow this tip. It's usually safe to be friendly towards others. Of course, there are times when others just don't want someone acting friendly towards them, and you should be sensitive to that. You should also be friendly within the bounds of appropriateness. But who doesn't like to feel welcome and wanted? Be helpful. This is probably one of the weaknesses of our society. Sure, there are many people who go out of their way to be helpful, and I applaud them. But in general, there is a tendency to keep to yourself and to ignore the problems of others. Don't be blind to the needs and troubles of others. Look to help, even before you're asked to. Listen to others. Another weakness. We all want to talk, but very few of us want to listen. And yet we all want to be listened to. So take the time to actually listen to another person, rather than just wait your turn to talk. It'll also go a long way to helping you understand others. Overcome prejudice. We all have our prejudices, whether they're based on skin colour, attractiveness, height, age, gender, whatever. It's human nature, I guess. But try to see each person as an individual human being with different backgrounds and needs and dreams, and try to see the commonalities between you and that person, despite your differences. Stop criticizing. We all have a tendency to criticize others, whether it's people we know or people we see on television. However, ask yourself if you would like to be criticized in that person's situation. The answer is almost always no. So hold back your criticism and instead learn to interact with others in a positive way. Rise above retaliation. We have a tendency to strike back when we're treated badly. This is natural. Resist that urge. The Golden Rule isn't about retaliation. It's about treating others well, despite how they treat you. Does that mean you should be a doormat? No. You have to assert your rights, of course, but you can do so in a way where you still treat others well and don't strike back just because they treated you badly first. Be the change. Gandhi famously told us to be the change we want to see in the world. Well, we often think of that quote as applying to grand changes such as poverty or action against racism and violence. Well, sure, it does apply to those things, but it also applies on a much smaller scale to all the small interactions between people. Do you want people to treat each other with more compassion and kindness? Then let it start with you. Even if the world doesn't change, at least you have. Notice how it makes you feel. Notice how your actions affect others, especially when you start to treat them with kindness, compassion, respect, trust, and love. But also notice the change in yourself. Do you feel better about yourself? Happier, more secure, more willing to trust others now that you trust yourself? These changes come slowly and in small increments, but if you pay attention, you'll see them. So to go through and recap those small tips from the writer: be empathetic, be compassionate, be friendly, be helpful, listen to others, overcome prejudice, stop criticizing, rise above retaliation, be the change, and notice how it makes you feel. My thanks to the person who sent in the link for these practical tips for living the Golden Rule. A reminder again from yesterday's podcast that some words from Martin Luther King: life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? And given these tips, perhaps what we're doing for others is self-developmental. We are looking at ourselves, we are taking time to pause and reflect, and we're working on becoming a better person. And so for today's Wellbeing Wednesday, perhaps that's just the message. What are we doing to treat others well? What are we doing to change our own behaviours so that what we're doing for others is to be a kinder and better person? Until tomorrow, be kind, take care, and stay safe.